guys, this is Miss Moon here from Operation Awesome. Today I'm going to be experimenting again with another quick tutorial. I've had a couple of people recently at cons ask how I make my gems for Steven Universe, and so because I have to make another one right now for a con, I'm going to Alcon tomorrow, so this is a little last minute. I thought I'd go through how I make them and just film myself doing it. These gems, I will say before I start, this method works for faceted gems, like amethyst, but it won't work for a round gem like pearl, for example. You can't make rounds with this method, just flat angles. Let's get started. To start, you'll need clear plastic translucent dividers. You can buy these from stationery shops. I got these from W.H. Smith's for about £4 or £5. If you can't find these, you might be able to use folders instead. Craft foam that's also in the colour of the gem that you want to make. A hot glue gun, you don't need a big one, I'm just using a mini one, and also some glue sticks for the glue gun. A permanent marker, preferably in the colour of the gem that you're making. A pencil. A ruler and a protractor depending upon the shape that you're making. Some scrap paper. Some craft scissors, however you can use a craft knife with a cutting board and a metal ruler if you prefer. And masking tape. First we're going to draw a guide for how the gem should look. Since I'm making amethyst, this is going to be hexagonal, so you'll need to adjust this depending on which shape you're making. First you want to work out a centre point, then 2 points on either side that are the shape of the central facet of the gem. I'm using graph paper to make this stage easier. Next, use your protractor and work out from the central point where each of the corners of your gem will be. Again, since this is a hexagon, this will be at 60-degree angles. Work this out all the way around. Next, take a ruler and draw a line from each of the outermost points to the central point. Since this is a hexagon, I'm just drawing straight through, but if you're doing something like a pentagon, you'll need to do this from each point to the central point. Then mark up each of these lines halfway of the size of the central facet from the centre point. And then join each of these markings up to create a guide for the size of the central facet. Try to make sure you have the size of this right, as it will be annoying to change later on. You should create this sort of asterisk type shape. Now place your translucent plastic sheet over the guide and tape it down so that it's secure. Using a marker pen and a ruler, copy each of the lines from the outermost point to where they join the central facet, but don't actually copy the central facet onto the plastic. Don't worry if the ink bleeds like it has done there, just try to wipe off the worst of it, as it won't be visible once we're actually making the gem. Make sure that all of the outermost points are the same length. Next, use your scissors and cut around each of the outermost points to create the basic shape of the gem. Try to cut this as straight as possible, as it will make the later stages much easier. But don't worry if the gem is not exactly even all the way around. Next, take your scissors and cut up each of these lines to where they would have joined the central facet. I realised that I'd made my original guide too small, so I've remarked on these lines where I actually want my outer facet to be, and it will mean that on this gem there will be these lines visible on the central facet. Once you have each of the lines cut to create this flap, fold each of the flaps that you've created towards the centre. Crease them as firm as you can. You should see the shape of the gem beginning to form from this. Now here comes the finicky bit. Figure out the best angle and cut the lines to create triangular notches, which you can push together to create the angle, and then use masking tape on the outside of the gem to hold these in place. Don't worry if there is a hole like there is there, we're going to fill it in later. Try to create each of these notches with as similar an angle as possible. If you want to be really exact, you can work this out at the guide stage and then cut this out with a craft knife and metal ruler, but I'm eyeballing it with craft scissors today. If you feel like the gem's too shallow, you can cut the notches deeper and make the angle more pronounced, but be aware this will make your gem smaller. What you see with this masking tape is essentially what the shape of the gem is going to be. So here's the point where we change it to figure out exactly what we want. Try to make sure each of the seams are as joined together as possible though. Next, take your hot glue gun and run a line of hot glue up each of these seams that you've just created on the inside of the gem. Be careful not to burn yourself if any of the hot glue starts coming through a hole, and try to cover all of the cracks. Leave this to dry and then remove any stringy bits. Next, remove the masking tape. If it peels off like that, don't worry, you can just re-glue it. The gem should hold its shape without the masking tape. If it doesn't, then re-masking tape it and re-glue it until it does. Now we're making the base. Take your craft foam and draw around the gem onto it. Use your scissors to cut around. Try again to make it as straight as possible. The line itself might have buckled in from the gem not having that much structural integrity yet. So if all else fails, make the gem base wider. Make sure you know which sides of the gem match with which sides of the base. Take your hot glue gun and run a line of hot glue around the edge of the base. And then, while the glue is still hot, quickly take your plastic gem and place it on top, making sure to match sides. You might need to push it in slightly to make sure that it's firmly secure. For extra security, run a line of hot glue around the edge of the gem. Be careful not to burn yourself during this step though. This will create a seal to keep the gem attached to the foam. The next steps will vary depending on how you're intending to attach your gem to your cosplay. So, if you've done this, then you should have a gem like this that's foam on the back. This will work fine if you're attaching it to fabric for a cosplay. Take, for example, my Blue Diamond cosplay. This is still foam on the back, and I've just stitched it through on the top and bottom, not on the sides because this is stretched fabric and I didn't want it to interfere. And that stayed on quite fine. This gem has stayed together quite well. However, if you're wanting to glue the gem to you with spirit gum or liquid latex, then the foam can absorb that glue and not stick very well if you leave it as is. And also, as you might have been able to tell, this is not terribly structurally sound. I mean, they're never very terribly structurally sound, but still. So what we're going to move on to doing is either a gem like this, that is fabric on the back, although this one's slightly tacky from where it's been covered in liquid latex, which you can see this is a bit firmer, and basically I've just covered the back of this in fabric and glue, so we're going to cover that. However, the gem that's being used for this tutorial is this, and I did turn it into a necklace for Amethyst because I'm fed up with liquid latexing stuff to myself. So this is the backup plan. For these extra steps you'll need PVA glue, a glue spreader, and some scrap fabric, preferably of a colour that matches your gem. Firstly, attach any ribbons or things if you're making a necklace, and then spread a layer of PVA glue across the base of your gem. Make sure to get it evenly and into all of the corners. Next, take your fabric and place your gem firmly on the fabric. Then cut it, leaving some excess. And make sure that it's firmly secure. Now add several more layers of PVA onto the fabric, making sure to spread it right across the edges and into the excess, keeping it nice and stiff. Ideally, you'd leave this to dry naturally between layers, but since I have to wear this tomorrow, I'm speeding it up with a hairdryer. Keep adding layers until it's stiff. Then, use fabric scissors to cut the excess off the sides. If you've attached a ribbon like I have to make it into a necklace, make sure you keep that out of the way. Try to trim as close as you can. So, at the end of all that, you should have a gem like this, ready to be attached with whatever method you prefer, whether that be spirit gum or liquid latex. I personally use Prozaid that I get from Coscraft. I would highly recommend it. Thank you very much for watching, and many thanks to Glutenfreeskateboard Amaipetisu and Aoba-hime on Tumblr, who've all posted similar methods, all using the plastic binders that I've basically just blatantly stolen and then ripped off. None of them were videos, so you know, for those of you who find videos easier. If you have any questions, then please leave them down in the comments, along with any suggestions on any other tutorials or other videos you'd like to see me or the others do. And maybe even drop us a like or a subscribe. Maybe. Please. Come on. I'm Miss Moon of Operation Awesome, and thank you very much for watching.